to all of those who joined us yesterday. We're so happy to see so many of you again. And for those who weren't with us yesterday but are new today, welcome. And we'd love to hear where you're calling in from. And also for those folks who were with us yesterday, if you could share in the chat your aha moment from yesterday. If there were any great takeaways that you got out of the workshop yesterday, we'd love to hear from you. So we've got another great morning planned, and we are just so excited to have all of you back. We've got our first panel presenters that we're going to kick off lessons learned from many Vermont communities from around the state. We'll be sharing their experiences with placemaking. And then we'll go into a panel discussion focused on our local food systems and working with artists, and then into our optional small group discussions. Yesterday was a really good workshop. I learned a lot. I hope all of you did as well. We were able to hear from Amanda O'Rourke from 880 Cities around some of the key pieces that go into winter placemaking. I really appreciated hearing of those 4 elements of warmth, light, spark, and movement. The movement one was really important, getting people out and being able to move, whether that is walking or rolling or biking, making sure that things are truly accessible for people of all ages and abilities is a really good takeaway for me. And then we heard from a great panel afterwards, streets as places, really how we can look at our streets and redesign and make them work better for people, from Jonathan Weber at Local Motion and John Kaplan from VTrans. And then we went in for a great discussion, Rebecca Sanborn-Stone, who shared with us some of the best DIY placemaking activities that we could do in our own community. And I was really inspired because everything felt very doable and reachable. So thank you all to our presenters that shared yesterday. And we're going to also, I'm going to turn over the screen in just a minute to Rebecca. She's going to share the outcome from the mini challenge that we put out for all of you. But before we do that, I do just want to remind folks with Zoom that you can select the speaker view or the gallery view. We suggest that you have the speaker view when the slides are up. And then we can go into, and then you can choose the gallery view. And also really highly encourage chatting in the chat box. We had a great discussion yesterday in the chat, and it just is a wonderful way for us to connect still virtually, because in years past we were meeting in person, and this year we're meeting virtually. So please take advantage of the chat. There's so many resources amongst us, and so it was really great to hear people responding to some of the questions that were put out there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca Sanborn-Stone from Community Workshop. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, good morning. Thanks so much, Kelly.
Good morning.
Back in here to share. Okay. So for those of you who were with us yesterday, you probably remember we launched a really simple, quick challenge yesterday. We challenged all of you to get off the line and go do one simple, really quick thing to make your places more lovable and livable. And Kelly was giving away generously a couple of gift cards to anyone who completed the challenge. So the #1 rule of DIY placemaking is try something really quick and easy, and if it doesn't work, try something else. And that's in fact what we're doing today. So we tried this, and only 2 people sent us projects that were actually not from yesterday. So we love them and we're going to share them with you, but we're going to adapt on the fly and try something else. So we figured you all could use a little bit more time to complete this challenge, and we're going to give you another week to do it. So those of you who are on the phone today and didn't join yesterday, that means you are eligible as well. So let me just really quickly share with you what we did see, because they're so fun and inspiring. So Claire Rock from Montpelier sent us photos of her little free haunted house, which she set up on her street last week, which is absolutely amazing. I want to know the story behind this, if this was a dollhouse that was done or not, but such a great idea to just put something fun and clever and cute out on your street as a surprise to whoever's walking by, something for people to check out and see. Our second one came from Mary O'Neill in Burlington, who shared Miss Georgia, who is a scarecrow who dresses up for all kinds of different situations and changes with the seasons or with a message Mary wants to send, which is absolutely great as well. So big thanks to Claire and Mary for sharing these ideas with you all. And back to the challenge again. So we're still challenging you all to go out and do something very, very quick. It can even be much quicker than what Claire and Mary have shared here. It could be the tiniest little thing you can possibly think of. So if you want to participate in our new revised challenge here, just figure out one small little thing that you can go and try over the next week that will enhance or improve a place that you love. Go do it. And you don't have to do it today. We encourage you to do it, to just get it out of the way and remember how simple this can be. But anytime before next Friday is good. And then the most important part, share what you did. So just take a picture or two, send us a caption by next Friday at midnight. And there are a couple of ways you can submit. You can email it to me. My email is right on the screen, rebecca@communityworkshopllc.com. Or you can post it on social media with the hashtag AARP Places We Love. So if you're on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and you post your photo and caption with that hashtag, we'll find it and you'll be entered. Kelly's going to send out an update email on the workshop on Monday, so this information will be in there as well if you don't capture it right now. Anybody who does enter will be in the running, and Kelly's going to put together a esteemed little panel of judges to take a look, and we will post the winners by Tuesday, November 10th. So encourage you all to go out and try something, do something fun. We'll share those photos in the Vermont Creative Placemaking Facebook group as well. So if you haven't joined that, encourage you to join that group where you can share ideas, ask for help, and get lots of inspiration. So thanks.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Rebecca. And I hope everybody takes part in the challenge. We'd love to see different placemaking efforts, small or big, coming from all over the state. And so it'll be really fun, and we'll share those pictures out as Rebecca shared. So, all right. So we are going to go into our first panel, which we have a number of really great panelists coming from all corners of our state that are going to share about lessons learned around their placemaking demonstration projects that they have worked on over the last year. We've got 5 different communities, so we're going to hear from Brattleboro, Burlington, Fairfax, Fairhaven, and Northfield. So I think really great representation. And our first panelist will be Stephanie Bonin. And Stephanie is from Brattleboro, and she is the Executive Director of the Downtown Alliance in Brattleboro, and is also, I believe, a local, you own a local business too down in the downtown as well, Stephanie. And so Stephanie's going to share a little bit about the project that they worked on. You'll hear from all the panelists. They're going to share about their project, what the overall objectives were for working on this project, and then how the project has evolved over time. And then for some cases, how these projects are also responding to COVID where applicable. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Stephanie, and welcome Stephanie, thanks for joining us. And you can go ahead and pull up your slides.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So yes, my name is Stephanie Bonin, and I'm the Executive Director of Downtown Brattleboro Alliance, and excited to be here to talk about Alley Lane. And so Alley Lane's goal was to enliven a connector space that is adjacent to our town's parking garage and between our lower downtown and our upper downtown. So the first question is,
sorry, Stephanie, not to interrupt. We're not seeing your slides. So
yes, I'm not sharing slides yet.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Technology.
Yes. So the first question is, what is so important about an alley? And then also, why should a parking garage be anything more than a functional space to put cars? And those have been the guiding questions that we have repetitively asked ourselves during this placemaking adventure that we've had around the project of the Transportation Center, AKA our parking garage. And I also wanted to take just one more step back and ask the obvious question of parking. Like, really, is that really the issue to, spend your time on? And I am a lover of community organizing. And the first rule of thumb with community organizing is to go where people are at. And in our town, you can get anyone talking, anyone engaged around the issue of parking. So what is the problem? The problem is people do not like the parking garage. And we had a recent study come out that says we have plenty of parking, and the parking garage is an important part of that. But still, people don't like it. And what don't they like about it? It's dark, it's damp, it sometimes smells like people use it for a bathroom. There have been drug deals there. It feels unused, unowned, uncared for. And in that whole list of things, I could argue both directions that it's perception or fact. And so our solution is to change the community's vision of the parking garage being a blighted area, and instead switch it to this vision of being an asset, which it is. So we partnered with a team of artists who had put a temporary art installation on the parking garage, and their vision was to use this art to connect the community with the Connecticut River, which Brattleboro unfortunately has our back to the Connecticut River. So how can we connect? So after talking, we quickly realized that all of these goals combine, which is connect the community with the river and re-engage this space of a parking garage so that it is looked at as a positive thing. So that brings us to Alley Lane, which here is a picture of the first thing we did, which is lesson learned. You let the feedback shape the project versus fitting the feedback into an already fleshed out project. So the first thing we did is take this gigantic photo of the alley, put it on foam core, and give people fancy Sharpies and ask them to write all over it. And I do feel that one of the reasons this was so effective is because you're not really supposed to write on photos. So it kind of felt racy to people. Like, ooh, I can scribble, I can draw, I can do whatever I want on this photo. So we took this photo out to different community events and just asked the questions. How can we make this space come alive? What can you imagine this space being? And what would attract you to this space? So people quickly stopped saying an alley and started dreaming. So at the end, the photo looked like this. The second lesson learned was surround yourself with your community. And that's from the beginning, not the end. So at the table, we had the entrepreneurs that looked at this food truck that someone drew in and said, oh, that's a brilliant idea. Let's talk about that. We had artists at the table who looked at the drawings for murals and up the staircase and started dreaming about that. We had the town planner at the table who saw the words friendly lighting and zip line and said, no, we cannot do a zip line, but how can we take a zip line and friendly lighting and merge them and make it possible? So we, at the end of the process, Alley Lane looked a little like this, and you'll see art, you see color, you see fun. And one of the big side effects that we weren't planning on was conversations. And so we had thought people would drop by, they would partake in 1-2 activities, and then move on. And what happened was, instead, everybody stayed, and it became a gathering point to chit chat and hang out. And that was one of the best side effects that we hadn't planned for. The last lesson that we we're reminded of is to follow up with any of the outcomes. So the first thing we immediately did was the musician who was at the table immediately installed speakers, permanent speakers, into these buildings that you see, so that now there's music playing there. Another example is that the signs that you see here that are leveled signs for the parking garage. I actually have a meeting with the town manager and town planner today for them to take a look at the second rendition of these signs, because people love them so much. We're moving into permanent and engaging the parking garage that way and connecting it with the Connecticut River that way. So hopefully the next time you come to Brattleboro and you pull into the parking garage, you'll think of Alley Lane when you hear the music that's playing, you see these brightly colored fish leveled signs. And also, if you start to think this is feeling a little dark and damp, you kind of look beyond that first thought and you'll see the permanent art sculpture that Ask the River is putting on that has reflective mirrors to take that sun into the parking garage and bring in a little light. Thank you very much for taking a look at our project.
Great. Thanks so much, Stephanie. And I love seeing all the work happening down in Brattleboro. And AARP had awarded Brattleboro with a small placemaking grant last year for the pop-up demonstration project. And it was just wonderful to see some of the outcomes come from a small micro grant like that. So great work, Stephanie.
Thank
All
you.
right. You're welcome. All right, so we're going to move gears. We're going to head north now to Burlington, and we're going to hear from David Crawley and Sophie Quist, who are both community activists in their neighborhood and have started from the ground up and have achieved quite a bit in Burlington. They have really focused in on taming the street there. They get a lot of people cutting through their neighborhood and people speeding, and they're going to share some of the placemaking efforts that they've been working on. And Sophie has been a long time volunteer with AARP, and we are really grateful and lucky to have her. So I'm going to kick it over to David and Sophie.
So look at this picture. It's either the most gorgeous place you could imagine with river on one side and Centennial Woods on the other side, or it happens to be one of the worst traffic spots in all of Burlington. It's one of the few east-west corridors. And so we called AARP and asked for a walk on it, and they said, this is terrible. And, you know, we'd had a recent pedestrian death and several pedestrian deaths before then. And so we made our organization and got to work. This is also historically an amazing place. And I think, okay, yeah, so it started maybe 3,000 years ago. We had a lot of Native Americans, ending with the Abenakis, living there for a long time because of the tremendous salmon runs in the Winooski River. But then a lot of entrepreneurs came and kind of pushed them out, including the salmon and the Native Americans, and made all these mills. So we were larger than Burlington was for a long time with our clothing mills and lumber mills and flour mills. We decided what could we do about this neighborhood so that people would think it was a neighborhood with small narrow streets. They're all very old, instead of a throughway. So we decided we wanted a mural, and the big lesson is don't ever get discouraged. We started out being one of 10 finalists in the you know, the art council. You know, they were giving away a lot of money for projects, and so we were so thrilled about that. But we didn't win, and then we started putting out a lot of grants. We didn't win those. We did, but we had started out with 80 feet that we wanted for the mural, and so our needs got smaller, and we just pushed and pushed and pushed, and we got an AARP grant, and we also got a number of neighborhood contributions, and we ended up with a 24-foot mural. And I'm going to pass it over to David in a second, and you can see, because what we hadn't done was planned how we were going to put the murals up in this new space, which is right at the corner of these streets that you see here. The mural is, so in slow car times, when they're going 50 miles an hour, they'll slow down and look at it. And in fast car times, when it's bumper to bumper, they will have something to look at and they will appreciate that. So let me turn it over to David now.
Thanks, Sophie. You know, it's funny, when I thought about lessons learned in the process of creating this mural, I began thinking about the idea that it's you know, action, you know, versus planning, or action and planning. Actually, you know, we talked a little bit about taking action yesterday, and you know, Sophie is a person of action. She likes to drive ideas quickly. She likes to get things done. And this was no exception. So when I got introduced to the project, Sophie had already done a lot of the heavy lifting. She knew the artist, Tara Garot. She had gotten permission from the property owner. So this property line here is the one that she's talking about, that's right along this line. And this little triangle here is a potential future site for placemaking as well. It's an open area, but we have this portion right here. She'd also, as she talked about, gotten the grants from several organizations, and she also collected the opinions of neighbors about what should be in the mural. You know, nature was preferred, but a number of neighbors were also thinking we should put some elements of our neighborhood history in here. But we reflected on that, and there had been, at the time, there was controversy about a mural that was in downtown Burlington that didn't really depict the full history or tried to depict a certain side of history. And so we realized that we've got to go back and study a little bit more about and learn more about our history so that when we do depict it, it's well conveyed. And Sophie conveyed all these themes to the artist. So a lot of this work was done. Now I'm the planner, and I think at the time, Sophie was like, well, we're not quite sure how we're going to get this thing built. So I liked going after details and deadlines and things like that. And I think she knew that, and that's how she got me hooked into the project. So it was late August when I found out about it, and the installation was supposed to go up in September. And I realized there were still a few things we didn't know. We didn't know the exact location. We had to figure out how to avoid damage to an existing fence that was there. There was a question of rights of way that's very close to the street. We didn't know how far back the city had right of way. Did we need a permit? You know, we had to figure out how to deal with the slope and the angles. And probably the most important thing I did at the time was began to facilitate a conversation between the property owner and the artist, so that we could get decisions made in time and still try to meet that end of October deadline. So by the way, the artist, Tara, had designed this so that the mural would fit on 3 sheets of 4x8 plywood. So the layout for the framing was fairly simple because we just had to get the posts where the mural panels would come together. Well, on the installation day, I was surprised to find out that Tara had already lifted the heavy panels up into place herself. And then she went ahead and touched up different parts to bring the panel sections together. One of the things that was new to me that she had done was she added a final coat of what's called mineral spirit acrylic varnish on top of the whole mural. And that prevents UV degradation of the paint. But even more importantly, it's a protection against graffiti. If someone painted graffiti on this mural, there's a solution that would take off the varnish level, and then it could be resealed and cleaned. So it's also a maintenance item for us every couple of years. But that was an interesting innovation that she brought to it. Well, one of the things I like most about the mural is that it really gives a sense of space and nature. You know, the Winooski River seems to start way off on one side, it comes close, and then it recedes down to the mouth of Lake Champlain. I get this perspective when I fly into Burlington sometimes. And of course, the plants and animals that are depicted in here really are the first river dwellers, the first river dwellers here. And today we really are recognizing that we see deer, fox, bobcats, and all kinds of other animals, which is unusual for being in a city. So this is really helping it to connect, back to that scene of nature. And this is really what Tara had intended, that, we have to start thinking about being the caretaker of the lands that we are living in. So we had a lot of positive reaction from the mural, just both while we were putting up the smiles and recognition of people living in the neighborhood. It gave us a chance to chat with more people and start thinking about what are other types of things we could be doing in the neighborhood. It got an article in 7 days and some postings on Front Porch Forum. But it really helped, get us to a little bit more organization for our neighborhood group. And over the course of the past year, we've really picked up a whole bunch of other kinds of placemaking projects. There was a flower garden that was added to the mural. We have launched an effort to help clean and maintain a historic cemetery that's nearby. There's advocacy for traffic safety that's continuing. So these are just some of the things that we've been, working on in the last 12 months. But perhaps, this kind of culminated in September this year with another small grant from AARP Vermont. We were able to put together, 5 benches for our neighborhood park. We invited the Girl Scouts in. They actually did the designs for these benches and painted them. Neighbors came back in the following weekend to help assemble them. And what's kind of unique about these benches is they're convertible. They convert from a bench into a picnic table. You can move them around, stack them together. And we recognize that there's a potential for vandalism and theft, but we wanted to take that chance because the idea of mobility and having people, really feel they have a ownership in this park was a big deal. So, even with COVID, we as a community group is starting to create more things to help our placemaking in an area called the Old East End. It's still relatively unknown in Burlington, but we're working to help change that. So with that, thanks for the opportunity to speak today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, David. And thank you, Sophie. Everyone's loving the mural, gorgeous colors. And real quick, David, if you could share in the chat the type of paint that was used on the mural. Lots of people were curious about that. And also just wanted to make note that Sophie was talking about the animating infrastructure grants that are available through the Vermont Arts Council. And Michelle Bailey, who's presenting later today, will also be we'll be able to share a little bit more information on those animating infrastructure grants. So I want to let everybody know about that. All right, super. So we are going to head further up north to Fairfax, and we're going to hear from Brad Dochev, who is the town manager in Fairfax, and he's going to talk a little bit, and he's actually going to show a great video on transforming a vacant, unused lot into a pocket park up in Fairfax. So Brad, welcome.
Thanks a lot, Kelly, and thanks to you, Rebecca and Laura, and AARP Vermont for facilitating the workshop and letting us be a part of this. As Kelly said, I'm Brad Dochev, the town manager of Fairfax. I'm going to talk about a little project we did here that we were able to undertake through the help of an AARP placemaking demonstration grant back in 2019. So there was a commercial building that was taken down a handful of years back right in the center of our village. And this left an open lot that was not conducive to further development for a number of reasons. It was actually so unappealing that the developer who owned the site donated it to the town. So we were left with an unused, ugly patch of dirt and grass in the heart of our village that served to do nothing more than really collect trash that was blown in off the roadway and serve as an eyesore for people coming through. We didn't really like that to be the best way to welcome folks downtown. So we decided to brighten it up a little bit and organized a community build day to change that and make it a little bit more appealing to folks coming through. And I'm going to try now to share a little video of our experience that day. And hopefully everybody can see this. You guys got that? And I'll turn the volume up a bit so we can get better audio. All right, here we go. What? All right. It is. So, you guys hear me again? All right, great. So that was a great day, but it was really just the start of that project. The space has continued to evolve, and I'll touch on that more in just a moment. But I do want to say this was not without challenges. You know, it's great to have a good idea and just say, do the thing and get it done, and then face realities. We found that we got a lot of runoff from our main street right into that park, which led to some washouts and sinkholes, which did not really jive with our initial site plan and some of the signage we had in store for that. But we didn't let that stop us. We pushed through and continued to build on it. We got the highway department involved, and they came down and, you know, they added some material, they did some work, smooth things out and help address those issues. What was really great about that is that they came in with total buy-in. They were absolutely willing and happy to take some time to fix that site because they saw the efforts that were being made by community members. And they said, you know, that's just as important as any other maintenance we're going to do today. We're going to come down there and fix that site so it's back up and running. Since the video was filmed, the site has evolved quite a bit. We've added a community messaging board, excuse me. We've increased the seating. We've added a bike rack, a fence, and we've done some stone and landscaping work around it. We had further plans for this year, but of course, COVID decided to get in the way of that. So we're going to push those off. But what I will say is that our community responded really well and utilized this site in their response to the COVID crisis. First, this became a spot where just little hopeful messages appeared one day and were sprinkled throughout along the roadway and throughout the park. And that was unbeknownst to me. I had no idea. I was out for a walk and saw it and thought that was really nice to discover. You saw a restaurant and some pizza in that video there, located right across the way, and they had to close their doors to indoor seating due to COVID. But folks were getting pizza and going across the street to the park and sitting, so they donated some funds so we could construct another picnic table out there and give people another opportunity to eat, which was great. And the overwhelming support from the community has been positive, which is great. We've also seen over the summer folks doing remote work outside when they could. And while the weather was cooperating, you know, students would go on their off days and do some of their remote homework in that park, which was really nice to see. And we're going to continue to use this spot as a catalyst for more changes. The small project really served to provide a bit of that spark that Amanda touched on yesterday and getting things going. Folks mobilized to help. Businesses donated products and materials to the project. And you know, the town employees were really happy to get involved and add to it. So that's really been great. We're taking on the challenge of converting an old church to a community center in town. And this project definitely provided some lessons for laying the groundwork of getting residents involved in kind of sharing that leadership task and in just making things happen. And I would like to just share a quick anecdote about the park that happened to me very recently. I was out with my kids shopping in another town, and one of the workers in that store happened to live in Fairfax. So he stopped me and we chatted a little bit, and he brought up the park, and he let me know that when we put out the idea and called for help, his initial reaction was, quote, that it was really stupid. He thought it was going to be a bad idea. But he's come to really appreciate it and love it. And every time he drives by, he likes it. And he ended by saying, thanking me for my part in that and saying, keep doing more things like that. And that's really the only payout we need on these little projects. That quality of life improvement we see in folks and the recognition, kind of appreciating and taking ownership in their community. And it just goes to show that these little small changes can have a big collective impact. And that's the overall takeaway that we have up here.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Brad. It's great to
Sure.
see such leadership coming from a town manager. I think Fairfax is really lucky to have you. And it's true, it can just be that small spark to get things moving. And I love the anecdote that you were able to share, that you were able to change someone's mind and perception around the space because they were actually able to interact and feel it, which is different than when you read about it or you see a picture of it. So terrific. All right, so we're going to head down further. We're going to go south now to the western side of the Green Mountains and hear from Joseph Gunter from Fairhaven. He's also the town manager of Fairhaven, and he's going to talk about the work that they did taming a parking lot, lots of asphalt, and really taking that space and turning it into a public place where people can enjoy it. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe and just remind folks, send in your questions in the chat and we'll get through as many questions we can after all the panelists are speaking. So welcome, Joe.
Okay, good morning, Kelly. Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Like Kelly said, I'm Joe Gunter. I'm the town manager in Fairhaven, Vermont. I want to take this opportunity to thank Kelly and AARP for all the work they're doing in Vermont. I know for our little town, it was such a big boon to receive this grant award. And like Brad said earlier, that little spark really made a huge difference in our town. And I hope I can convey that during this presentation. Okay. So, bear with me, I'm a minimalist when it comes to PowerPoint presentations. So like we talked about, this is Fairhaven's pop-up park project. In Fairhaven, we have a small downtown with maybe 20 storefronts. And when this area was constructed, it was built as a sea of concrete. That's just how we used to build the roads in our buildings back then. As time passed and you know, transportation evolved, this sea of concrete became less than ideal for economic development and for the development of our town. So when I came on board 3 years ago, the Board of Selectmen tasked me with creating a thriving downtown economy. Sounds easy enough, right? There's this great big goal of a thriving economy. As I learned what the community needed, I started reaching out, looking for funding, and we bumped into this AARP building. What was it? Building Spaces grant. So we incorporated that into our downtown economic revitalization project. What I got from the community at this time when we started applying for the grant, was this is a government project. This is not something locals really wanted to take part in, which at the time, that's just how it had been here for so many years. They wanted to see me, helping businesses get money, be more friendly to our businesses, give them tax breaks. What we found with this AARP grant is that businesses, they didn't necessarily want, they always want money, but it really wasn't what they were looking for. They wanted a special place downtown. They wanted people to come and walk and linger. They wanted to feel like we cared here in Town Hall. So with that, AARP gave us a few $1,000s to put in seating, make it a little bit more of a pleasant area downtown Fairhaven. This particular spot here is just an open chunk of concrete, no parking, really underutilized. We started a committee that came up with some ideas. They wanted to liven up the space a little bit with some color. They bought some cans, put in some flowers, painted them up, and really just, it really created a whole different atmosphere downtown. So that picture is actually, we had a wine and spirits tasting, which went over very well. During the work week, we often found some of our retired folks sitting down having a cup of coffee. These particular residents were fixing all the problems in Fairhaven that day. Also wine tasting. So pre-COVID, as everybody's experienced, COVID really threw a wrench into our economic development program. But pre-COVID, we had the coffee club. Those folks would come down, they'd grab a cup of coffee from the corner cafe and just hang out, meet each other, talk, and linger just like what we expected, like we wanted. In the afternoons, after the sun kind of passed by, we'd see kids come out, we'd see families come out and hang out for afternoon ice cream. It was really an interesting project. It was wonderful to see folks using the space and gathering around Fairhaven. And we also use this space in the grant funding to promote our Fairhaven Fridays. These were community-friendly events that we'd hold in this little area to bring folks, not only from Fairhaven, but from surrounding communities into our area, so that way they could shop and hang out and just kind of have a good time on Friday nights. Post-COVID, things have changed, and the project has changed. The project really did evolve and has met the challenge of this new era. Instead of having a congregated space with benches and seating, we moved the seating, as in that first picture, we moved the seating closer to the bus stop. This has been a huge hit. People were just kind of lingering out there, standing around. Nobody had told us they needed seating. We moved those benches there, and all of a sudden now we have people coming again, having ice cream across the street. Our flower pots, we didn't want to just leave them sitting in storage, so we spread them out across downtown. And same thing with our benches. Our restaurants needed extra seating outside, and our sidewalks really didn't support tables. But we had these benches to support businesses, so that way they could still have still do business and have folks come and sit around and hang out. Like Brad said, the real benefit was that spark we got from this project. It was a small project. It gave a little bit of seating downtown, but our real benefit was from the volunteerism that we got. People saw a change here in Fairhaven, which was something they haven't seen in a lot of years, and it drew people came to the project. These four ladies have come together. They created what they're calling the Itty Bitty Committee, and they've taken on a number of different projects just because they saw this change. They saw the spark from this one project. They organized public art. We had this, the side of this building was just, I don't know, just a blank space. So they wanted to do a little bit of historic artwork on it, and they organized this. They're holding town events, which was popular this year. They had a scarecrow contest, which my wife made one, and yes, that's me. And they're doing other COVID-friendly projects. So they're going to take down the scarecrows this year, and they're going to put up some Christmas trees in the park. We're lighting our town green for the first time, and it's fabulous to see the turnout for this. All because of that one effort through the AARP grant. People saw that they wanted to take part. They wanted to change things here in Fairhaven. Again, I'm a minimalist. Our goal was to create a thriving downtown, which, you know, it's a work in progress. What the AARP grant really did, it showed progress. It showed that things can change if we get together and we kind of put our shoulders into it. It created community, and it spurred interest and hope for our town. And I guess the real takeaway is that it made our town that much more livable, that much more lovable, like we're saying today. People enjoy coming downtown. They enjoy taking part. They're enthused to see that little bit of progress. And I guess my lessons, the lessons learned for this project is it takes time. We're still trying to grow our downtown, still trying to improve our economy. And this AARP grant is one piece in the puzzle to make that happen. So, yeah, I guess that's what our takeaway is.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joe. That was terrific. And myself and some other folks in the chat really love the itty bitty organizing group, the itty bitty committee. That's just terrific. And it's wonderful to see how this small project has sparked other change in your community. So thanks so much for sharing. And the same with, both Fairfax and Fairhaven they're really fortunate to have leadership coming from their town manager in this way. So I think that's the future, and it's great to see both of you moving projects like this forward and taking that leadership role. So thank you. All right. So we are going to head to the east side of the Green Mountains, over to Northfield, just south of Montpelier. I live in Montpelier, so I was able to actually work quite closely with both Lydia and Bonnie, who are community organizers in their community, and they're going to share about the project that they worked on, really focused on creating connectivity from their village green out to a new park that was an aftermath of Tropical Storm Irene, Dog River Park. And so they've got some great pictures and a great story to tell. And so I'm going to turn it over to Bonnie Donahue and Lydia Petty.
Thanks, Kelly. Can you hear me? All right.
I can.
Okay, great. Okay, so with the $3,000 AARP Placemaking Demonstration Grant, we set out to demonstrate the importance of creating a safe, walkable, welcoming Northfield, highlighting the sections between the downtown common here and the recently completed Dog River Park over here. As Kelly mentioned, the Dog River Park is an ecological, social, and flood resiliency park that was created on the site where many homes were destroyed from Tropical Storm Irene in 2011. So it's an important place for our community. We wanted to bring attention to the gaps and deteriorating conditions and the spotty existing sidewalk infrastructure between the Dog River Park and the Common. And we felt that this was negatively impacting the use of the Dog River Park. So we set out to demonstrate the impact of how small improvements in accessibility, safety, and curb appeal could transform the streetscape. With the grant, we created a temporary, accessible, painted pedestrian lane along the edge of the street. We did this also in collaboration with multi-generational community members and organizations, where we created colorful benches, which you can still see out around town, painted grade stakes, children's art. Here you can see dogs over the Dog River on our bridge, and educational signage, which we installed along this pedestrian lane. These elements visually guided people from the common to the park. So to celebrate this project, we organized an event to highlight this route where over 100 community members attended, beginning with a gathering on the common, which you see some images here. We paraded to the Dog River Park together, where people were greeted in the park with music, storytelling. We had a free ice cream truck. We had multi-generational games and activities in the park. We also had educational and ecological demonstrations, all of which were provided by local community groups. we received an overwhelmingly positive response to this project, which has had ripple effects in Northfield since, which Lydia will walk you through next. And a few of the reasons we feel that this project was so successful are that we involved multiple community organizations in the final event, but each had clearly defined roles, so we all sort of knew how we were working together. And Lydia and I kind of provided the structure and then let the individual groups, do their great thing. We also introduced this idea as a test with temporary improvements, which helped our local leaders feel comfortable with the project. And I think that built trust going forward with some of the projects you'll see Lydia speak about. And then finally, with the incredible help of AARP and Kelly, we were able to bring color, art, and a playfulness to Northfield's public spaces, which we really found people were very receptive to. So I'll hand that over now to Lydia.
Thanks, Bonnie. Preparing for this presentation really re-inspired and invigorated me. It's incredible to see how one small test project can create a flurry of activity and enhance the general culture of creativity in a community. I was stunned as I started going through my photos trying to collect outcomes from our project at just how many things have happened since our Take a Walk to Dog River Park. So I'm going to try to really quickly rush through a bunch of the changes. One of the biggest things I've noticed is that the Dog River Park wasn't really activated yet. People were using it individually for walking, but group activities and events were not happening in the park. For a lot of us, it had been a sad place when we'd lost so many homes there. So kind of re-engaging with this space in a new way. We had, during COVID, Uplift Northfield Art Walk, a partnership between Bonnie and I and the local mutual aid task force to help lift people's spirits up when we were locked inside. So we were able to reuse our grade stakes, which you saw along the lane, the walking lane. Those were kind of an unexpected piece of that we've been able to use multiple times since the project, and kids decorated them, adults decorated them. We had people painting all kinds of patterns on them. Some of them are really beautiful. So we were able to use them again for the art walk. And then a lot of other groups have started doing creative and playful activities. The library's been having story walks in the park. The Tai Chi group came back again and had outdoor Tai Chi again after our event. And the library also hosted a special middle school art walk for the Vermont Reads book, The Hate You Give. So people, the kids put their art out, and they also had a community discussion held in Dog River Park for that book. As well as activating the Dog River Park, we've seen an increase in connectivity in the community. Bonnie, if you can flip to the next slide. There have been walkability enhancements and infrastructure improvements that are directly connected to our little demonstration project. One thing for other communities to consider is that Northfield also went after a Better Connections grant through VTrans and ACCD. And so we were able to spend the last year envisioning how we could better connect our recreation resources to our downtown. So you'll see those signs that say East Street and Wall Street were part of a project with the Better Connections grant during COVID, where we used a self-guided walking tour to show people images of ideas that we could change in Northfield to better connect areas and get people's feedback in a safe way. We've been able to have many partnerships with Norwich University since our Walk to Dog River Park project, and that's culminated in a bus shelter being designed that will hopefully be placed on the common in between the park and the common, and we'll have wayfinding and maps to help people figure out where to go in the community. We also work to highlight Northfield's downtown for the Norwich Bicentennial through a Rediscover Northfield, which was, again, maybe 5 or 6 organizations in our community coming together to come up with a creative way to highlight what we have in our community and invite people to come from the university into the downtown. And we've been able to go from our temporary benches to permanent benches through a quick build grant from the Vermont Department of Health, also within the Better Connections grant, and they just got delivered yesterday. We're so excited to put them out. They look like that bench in the lower corner, but painted red, and we were able to get those and bike racks to put around our community. And just real quickly to wrap up, I wanted to show some of our winter placemaking with you as well, since that's the theme. We were able to repurpose the community chalkboard that we used in our Take a Walk Park to the Park event, again, in the Better Connections, to gather community input at our Common Spirit Farmers Market Festival that we have every winter. It has all the things that were talked about. There's cauldrons of bonfires, lights, food, people gathered close together, music. And you can see that was the tent where we were gathering input on how pedestrian and walkability improvements. We also have been able to organize winter sledding parties, and the library and Norwich University partnered in that as well, and had a story walk leading up to a sledding party. It was a 3/4 mile hike, but we got over 50 people to hike with their families up to this sledding party with a bonfire, free hot cocoa, a saucer luge track, which you can see me having a blast on, that we built with little children and Norwich students together. And just really, I feel like these little projects show communities that we can play together, and they make us feel courageous to try things out and see what happens. Our success has largely been because of multiple community groups working together, and our select board and town manager being open to some wacky ideas and figuring, well, it's just a little thing, so if it goes wrong, it won't be that big of a fail. And if it goes right, it's really amazing how much it can add. So thank you so much for having us here today, and Kelly for giving us the opportunity to try some things out. Oh, and also I wanted to make a plug for the AARP walk audit tool, because that really helped us as a community. And we've been able to make a number of improvements on our sidewalks. Our crossings got painted this year right away and have been much more vivid. And those little things, and we got flashers at our Main Street crosswalk, those were pointed out using that tool, which is free. And I know Kelly can tell you where to find it, but it's a great thing for a community to use. So thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Lydia. Thank you, Bonnie. I love the last slide, all that, leaving us with some great inspiration for winter. And also, Northfield is they're lucky to have such doers in their community. So I'm excited to see all the things that you've been able to achieve. And I will make sure that I share the walk audit tool with folks in the link to the AARP livability page. And I'm always available if anybody wants and needs support to help do a walk audit. We're not able to go out quite yet to do walk audits, but when that is lifted, I would be really excited to be able to help plan a walk audit in your community. So thank you to all of our panelists. You were terrific. You all shared about the two pieces that came out of each one of your presentations was how you optimized your place and how you led with the strengths and assets that already were in your community. It wasn't about it wasn't focused on, I wish my community was this and it's that. And it really just, it focused on what you already had and you just strengthened it. So kudos to all of you for your great work. We're running just a few minutes behind in the schedule, but there's been a lot of great questions in the chat. Some of them have been answered. I do want to throw out one question to the panelists because I think it's an important question, and it's also very timely as well. But it was around vandalism. And did any of you anticipate or plan your project so that that you would encounter vandalism to your project? If any of the panelists would like to respond to that, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
I'll just say one thing. Our project didn't get vandalized, but some of these projects that happened afterwards did get vandalized. And it was pretty heartbreaking for the community.
Yeah.
But it also opened up conversations that hadn't been happening. And so that middle school the art display on the Hate U Give was it was stolen, the entire art walk. But the community really rallied around those kids, They showed it virtually. They put it up again for the discussion group. And out of that, we adopted a resolution as a town that supported Black Lives Matter. So we had some very tense and uncomfortable conversations around race and racism in our culture. And so it wasn't easy, and it's not finished, but having the conversations was better than not having them, despite the vandalism.
Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Any others?
Yeah, I'll agree. I'll just say, and I think David stated it in his presentation that, the phrase worth the risk. So often when we're talking about these things, whether it's in our park or in public space, the question of potential vandalism always comes up. And sometimes I bring it up. But I think it's important to not let that be an obstacle, that potential to doing something that might be great. Because as you just said, Lydia, you can turn that negative experience into something really positive. And if folks are seeing vandalism that they're not happy with, and it's affecting, their experience somewhere, they're going to take more ownership of that site, I think. And they're, getting that spirit of this is all of ours, we all have to respect it, we all have to treat it well, is something that happens. And sometimes you use that incident to spur that. But, oftentimes I think it's always going to be there as a very real possibility, but you can't let that be an obstacle or stop you from doing something that will have a positive impact on the community.
Thank you, Brad. This is very helpful. Any others? All right. So we're going to transition to our next panel. There's a couple of other questions that came through in the chat. If some of the panelists could just take a look because they're really specific to your project and respond, that would be super. Before we go, one of the other things that came up in the chat, which is also important, I want to flag, is Karen Yakos from Local Motion talked about how inspiring all of your projects are. And it's so great to see them happening in Vermont communities. And there's a lot more that are happening that aren't necessarily presenting today. And having one place that we could go to for the inspiration. And the Department of Housing and Community Development, they have an intern, Grace, who they're working with. They're still developing the work plan right now. There's Grace. Hi, Grace. To pull together about 10 to 12 examples of placemaking efforts that are happening around Vermont. It won't be necessarily like a database, but it'll help tell that story and be able to inspire folks, and also a list of resources and information about what was successful with that project. So stay tuned for more, and we'll make sure that we're able to communicate out where perhaps that information might live. I'll connect with Grace and Richard Amore from Department of Housing and Community Development to make sure that we're able to share out that information with everybody. So this one, it's a work in progress, but I think it's exciting, and I think it'll be a great tool for all of us. So. All right, so our next and our last panel, before we move into our small group discussions, is creative design through partnerships. And we are lucky to hear from two of our partners. We have Michelle Bailey from the Vermont Arts Council. She'll be talking about working with artists, and Alyssa Matthews from the Agency of Agriculture, and really focused on winter farm markets and farmers markets, as well as our connecting with our local food systems. Our presenters that we heard from yesterday talked about sort of the key components that go into good placemaking. And Michelle and Alyssa will talk about, I think, about what draws people into a place, right? I think when people attract people, we know that. And when you engage the arts and when you engage our local food systems, those are pieces that really enhance and activate a place. And it keeps people there. Everybody likes the arts and everybody likes good food. So I'm going to turn it over to our first presenter, Michelle Bailey, from the Vermont Arts Council. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks,
All right.
everyone. Rebecca's going to advance my slides for me, so thank you, Rebecca. I'm really excited to be here with you today to talk about creative placemaking through public art, and specifically about the value that public art can bring to your project and how to find and work with artists. One of the programs that I oversee at the Vermont Arts Council is called Animating Infrastructure, which you've heard a little bit about. That grant program supports community projects that integrate art with infrastructure improvements. And through this program, we really strive to demonstrate the positive impact of art in helping communities meet their goals of livability, walkability, safety, economic vitality, and community vibrancy, and really to support the creation of unique infrastructure projects where function and art are one and the same. Next. So, oops, hold on. We've heard a lot about creative placemaking today, so I'm not going to go into a lot of description of it, but it's really about creating interesting places where people want to be and where events and things want to happen. Next. And when you do creative placemaking through public art, it demonstrates that this place is valued by the people that live and work here, and the people that live and work here are valued. Next. So public art can include all kinds of art forms. It's often site-specific, and its meaning it's created to response to the place and the community in which it resides. It's free and accessible to everyone, and it often interprets the history of the place or its people, or it may address a social or environmental issue. So how does public art add value to your project? Next. It can enhance civic pride. When people see themselves and their community reflected in their civic spaces, they're more likely to have a sense of attachment that allows for them to feel ownership and appreciation and respect. Next. Public art supports social connections and encourages civic and community engagement. It activates the imagination through art and storytelling to emphasize our shared humanity and allow that individual to better understand and connect with strangers and neighbors alike. Next, it contributes to public health and belonging. Creating interesting and beautiful places provides incentives for people to get out, get physical activity, and it often reduces stress because people feel safer and more comfortable in their environments and having a sense of fun and playfulness. Next. It can stimulate the economic development and encourage cultural tourism by attracting visitors to the site who will likely visit other restaurants and businesses and lodging facilities in your area as well. And then some artists next will engage the community in art making itself, which can provide educational opportunities, not only about the art making itself, but also expanding their knowledge and understanding about the place itself. Next. Artists can be engaged at various points in a placemaking project. Any of these ideas that I'm going to share can be shared on a variety of scales, from small to large scale, or from temporary to permanent. So, is your community conducting a visioning or planning process? Artists can engage people in art making activities that get at community vision and values. Not everyone may want to attend or participate in the traditional Tuesday night PM sit-down meeting in the town hall, but making activities fun will potentially get more people to participate. How about inviting an artist to be a part of your planning team, or invite an artist to be an artist in residence in your community for a week or a few months? So is there a facility or, can you go back one slide, Rebecca, thanks. A facility or a public space being designed for the community? How about a renovation to a trail or a park, a vacant lot you want to activate? We've heard about those. You can engage an artist with the architects, planners, engineers, community members, et cetera, and really incorporate unique design elements into that project. It creates more potential for functional integration of art and function, and also maybe a way to cut costs. It can be more expensive to try and do these things after they're already designed than when you are in the middle of a design process. Next. What area we typically think of where an artist is involved is in the creation of the art itself. And if you're at that point, artists can make the art themselves, or as we've heard, many can engage the community in the art making as well. Next. And then of course, programming and activating spaces, fairs, festivals, concerts, film screenings, theater performances, exhibits, just use your imagination. So next, where are the opportunities around winter placemaking? Next. Well, I encourage you to think about what are all those functional elements we've been talking about? could we have an artist to actually make the fire pit, or to create benches, or the lighting, or the fences, hand sanitizing stations, all signage? All of those are examples we've seen a little bit about, but provide a lot of opportunity for fun, functional aspects. Next. There are aesthetic elements. How about having an artist install something specifically for the space that makes it come alive? Or maybe a local artist that you know has a piece of art that they'd be willing to loan to your site if you just help them get the transportation to get it there for a few weeks or a month or a year, however long you want to do it. Next, how about community art making competitions? You could have snow carving or ice carving, could be done by community members, or have professional artists come in and make it a real big event. Next, there can be experiential elements like lighting and community light parades. Next, or interactive experiences. For example, this bridge in Montpelier has lights that change color when pedestrians walk across it at night, adding an element of playfulness and discovery in the streetscape. So where do we begin? First of all, identify your goals. What's your focus? Is it on community engagement? Is it on planning, safety? Just pick your goals. Choose a project that's the right scope and scale for your community. And also create a project team that includes diverse partners. Cross-sector partnerships are really key to successful creative placemaking, which we've heard a lot about today. Find opportunities to involve an artist from the beginning or as early as possible, and then ask yourself, how can I add value to this existing community infrastructure project or other community placemaking project? You can start small and temporary, like we've heard, and then keep building upon that with community, the momentum and the excitement, maybe going larger or more frequent projects. Placemaking has really been shown to be most successful when it's ongoing and not just a quick one and done, but never seeing it again, but trying to build upon that in a way that works for your community. So how do you find an artist? Hold on, where did I go? Yes, sorry, getting caught up on my slides here. Many of you have artists in your communities that you're already working with and are engaged with, and that's great, and that's wonderful. Next. But if maybe you don't know how to connect to an artist or wonder where they might be out there, how you can connect with them, one way to think about it is to develop a call to artists. There's a couple of different models out there. If you want to do a little more formal open call to artists, there's something called a request for qualifications, sort of like putting out a job opportunity for an artist, where you can identify the space or your community goals and ask artists to send in their letters of support, or letters of interest, a resume, or images of their work. And then you narrow that list down to some finalists that you can invite to the site and provide them with an honorarium to help them develop a concept for you and your community to work with. Or you can also go right to that concept work and ask for a request for proposals, where artists are asked to share and present their concepts right up front with you by submitting those up front. Generally, I'd say this is a little less desirable for the artist community just because they're asked to do a whole lot of work upfront without any design compensation or any for that work. However, it may be a way for you to work with some less experienced artists to gain some experience and sharing their ideas with the community. So it's certainly an option for you to work with, and they can be really formal or less, or just a quick and easy kind of thing. So I would suggest you reach out to your local arts community for organizations, Front Porch Forum, local library, other community gathering places like grocery stores or folks, social media. The Arts Council has a classified ad section, so you could post a classified ad there. And then, of course, local media and newspapers at all. And you also might think about doing an invitational. Maybe you have a handful of artists that you know in your community already. You could invite them to submit their information to see if they're interested in participating. So artists as contributors, however you might find your artists, remember that they're part of your community and your project, and they are local small businesses themselves. So they need to be supported for their time and their creative skills and interpretations that they can bring to each site and idea and social contract, construct. So it's really important that you compensate them. Just as you would plan to pay for an architect or a plumber or another consultant, you should plan and budget to pay your artists. Next. So how do you find and develop a budget and find funding? First of all, match your budget to your community. Be creative and think big, but also be realistic about what you think your community will support. Talk to some artists about similar projects to develop an understanding of a preliminary budget. You can do a lot of things in almost any price range, depending on the materials, amount of labor, and whether it's permanent or temporary. And as we've heard, many of these low cost, temporary projects are really great ways and catalysts to start building excitement about this. Are there creative ways you can cut costs? Do you have an existing budget for a floor or a bench already built into your project budget? Maybe you can give that amount over to an artist and use it to integrate art into your project. Your partners may be excited and want to contribute, so reach out to your partners. Sponsors, local businesses, they may, we've heard already, want to contribute funds or materials or services that might maybe be able to make this happen. Or maybe even setting up a crowdfunding campaign. The more excitement that you can build in your community around this, the more likely it will be successful. Next. So just my last slide or two, there are grant funding sources out there that may not necessarily say that they fund art, but if you, for example, are seeking a planning grant, include an artist consultant on your team and build it into your budget as a planning strategy. Or maybe your funder has education and outreach as part of their goals and requirements, working with an artist to engage that community around certain topics or themes. The funder may see this as an innovative way to achieve that goal. So I am excited to say we are offering the Animating Infrastructure grants again this year. The guidelines should be up on our website around November 20th. December 3rd, I'll be offering an online grant seeker workshop from 1 to 2 on Zoom. And then our first letter of interest will be due on December 18th. The grants range anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. They'll be available for both design and implementation. And we'll select probably 8 to 10 projects where we'll invite them to come back to do a full proposal, likely around February. Still working out the final details of all that. I'll go over much more of that at the workshop. So anyway, that was probably a little over my time, but thank you, Kelly and AARP, for inviting me to come and talk about working with artists and to help communities support these creative placemaking projects.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I've learned so much from you over the years, and the value of arts in our projects is so important. All right, so we're going to transition now to Alyssa Matthews, who works for the Agency of Agriculture, and she's going to talk about winter farmers markets and also working with our local food systems. Alyssa, and just wanted to give folks a heads up that Alyssa has been having some internet issues, so she might not be turning her camera on, but we'll be able to share her slides. Welcome, Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm just all right. Can you all see that?
Not yet. Oh, there we go. Yep.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I am Alyssa Matthews, and I work at the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets, focused mostly on direct-to-consumer market opportunities and connecting producers with various resources. My background is in community planning and food systems, and I got involved with all of these great organizations you've been hearing from today and yesterday while working on a local food access and planning toolkit that I'll talk about a little later. I am involved with placemaking in my current position because I see the opportunity for collaboration to implement community-driven market models. It's all about the relationships. During COVID, that proved super important as supply chains were disrupted. And now more than ever, it seems important to increase access to healthy local food in our communities. And all of these things are only improved with great partnerships.
Alyssa, sorry to interrupt. Your slides are coming in cut out, and I think that's the same for everybody else. We're only seeing a portion of your slides. So if everybody could give us a second, we can pull up your slides on our end and advance your slides because we can't see them all. So if you could stop sharing your screen and Rebecca will pull up your slides, that would be great. Sorry about that. And thanks everyone for bearing with us. Perfect. Okay, we've got them up.
All right. So second slide. So I'm excited to be sharing this time today with Michelle to talk to you because I think there are a lot of opportunities where art and food in our communities go hand in hand. I also see lots of similarities between artists and farmers and food business entrepreneurs. They all tend to not only be creative and multi-talented, but all of these different types of makers tend to be inventive problem solvers and are all such assets that strive to make their communities better places. I've worked on projects where farmers brought their tractors into town to plow beds for gardens. And right here in Randolph, where I live, a farmer helped weld some shelves and other finishing touches on the remodel of the local grocer and cafe. Food's a great way to bring culture out of and to our communities. It can nourish our bodies and minds and contribute to a sense of place. Next slide. So yesterday we had Amanda O'Rourke from 880 Cities talking about embracing winter, and some of these photos are from Edmonton and Toronto and projects she mentioned as we're trying to think about what to pull from some of our kind of colder climates that we can inspire activity here in Vermont. So, and to keep up, oh, no, sorry, back. And to keep with the theme of all of our anticipation of winter, I wanted to share a few winter strategies that build on each other and just really reiterate how mutually beneficial collaboration is to being more inclusive and attracting more people to participate in activities and events in the communities we aim to build together. So all of these examples can happen even in small cities and towns here in Vermont. Food trucks and mobile markets, they're easy to move around. The people making, serving, and selling the foods stay a little warmer. It's easy to bring in color and graphics that are eye-catching, which help people get intrigued and they want to see what's going on. It's been mentioned over the last few days how important lighting is. Add them to trees, to signs, buildings, anywhere your town allows. The days are so short, so light brings the warmth we all seek, along with plenty of hot soup and hot chocolate from our local producers, of course. And clearing patios and sidewalks, but leaving some snow to block the wind so people can grab a bite to sit and eat a while, taking a break from whatever activities you and the town have planned. And fire pits, both are, as Michelle mentioned, both artists and farmers often have scraps of metals and other materials, and could and would often help build things the community is looking to create. And there's just so many natural partnerships with downtown businesses, breweries, kitchen stores, just tons of possibilities. Next. So now for a few local examples. Randolph Winterfest. I'm not sure anyone knew how successful this event would be. They had local producers, food trucks, local musicians. There are all types of physical activities for all ages, sleigh rides, a huge bonfire and fireworks. People were bussed in from all over, and they stayed for hours. It was a wonderful event, and hopefully we're on to our third year here this winter. Next. Food access. With COVID, there have been so many pivots. So CIDR, which stands for Champlain Islanders Developing Essential Resources, they have many initiatives that they work on, but one is usually making big community meals. They work with Healthy Roots, another local organization, and get gleaned produce. This year, they continued feeding the community, but because of COVID, it was all packaged up and delivered to doorsteps. On the right, Willie's Variety is a convenience store down in Bennington. They installed a produce fridge to increase access of healthy fruits and vegetables for their customers. And now they're working with other local groups to see how they could be a pickup spot for a local producer's CSA or buying club share. Next. And farmers markets had to go no contact back in March. And so farmers, this is an example of one of the creative ideas that a farmers market did down in Bennington. They quickly figured out how to connect with customers and set up a pre-ordering system and designed a route in a big parking lot where producers still were able to set up, but they had pre-packed orders to drop into people's trunks, or that could be picked up, people walking through or on a bike, all prepaid and ready to go. Next. And not far away in Pulteney, another group took the idea of a RICO ring from Scandinavia, meaning fair consumption. They created an online marketplace using a Facebook group. Over a dozen producers and over 600 community members now are using that platform to buy and sell local food and specialty products each week. And then they gather in town to pick up their goods. Next. And I wanted to make sure to share a few great resources for finding local producers in and around your communities. Oops, sorry, I changed my thing. Can you go ahead too? Oh, yep, that's good, thanks. NOFA's good, sorry. So the last slide was NOFA Organic Farming Association. They have great resources, including a directory of farm stands and farmers markets and CSAs or buying clubs, and have programs to help make local food healthy and make local healthy food affordable. So they have a crop cash program and a farm share program for CSA shares. You can go in and search for all different types of producers and products that you might be able to bring into different projects in your community. And then this picture that you're looking at right now is Dig in Vermont. It goes even further with a larger directory of all types of producers and food and farm businesses. There's, I'd say, about 8 or 9 different producer associations whose members contribute and fill up the directory on this website. You can search by category. There's also a lot of great events to check out, and you can go in and even make your own local trail of local businesses. It can be a great way to find people to work with and build those great partnerships. And then just go back 1 or 2, sorry, back to the placemaking, or the, yeah, that, thank you. Yeah, sorry. And yes, placemaking, it's a great way to do things quickly and more affordably. And it often leads to some really great projects that have staying power and might be worth some extra time and money. So I wanted to share the local planning for food access toolkit. It has great case studies and ideas for anyone to get involved in the planning process, from the community member level up to the regional planning level. So I encourage you to check it out, and I will share the link in the chat. And with that, if you want to go to the my contact information, the last slide. I don't think there's time for questions, but here's my contact information, and I'm happy to connect anytime.
Super. Thanks so much, Alyssa. And thanks for your patience of working through some of the technology glitches. I want to thank both of our presenters, Michelle Bailey and Alyssa Matthews, for taking time and for further inspiring us about how we can better work with the arts, the artist community, and with our local food systems. Have learned a great deal from working with both of you. You've stretched me and made me think differently about placemaking and the value that both of those resources bring to good placemaking. I do want to be mindful of time, and we're not going to have time to get to all the questions. I know Michelle has responded to a couple that have come through the chat. So please, if you've got specific questions for Alyssa or Michelle, please pop them in the chat so that they can respond. So this concludes our full group programming together. We will be transitioning into the small group discussions, and I first want to thank everybody for participating, taking several hours out of your day yesterday and today to be here with us to talk about placemaking. I hope that you feel inspired. We know that those quick actions can be critical sparks for longer term progress in our communities. And my hope is that all of you have found at least one thing that has inspired you in your work, in your community. And we'd love to hear more about that. Connecting with us either on Facebook through AARP Vermont or Vermont Creative Placemaking, which is another Facebook page. Love to hear more from everybody. So before we get into our small group discussions, I do want to let everybody know about the funding opportunity through AARP. We will be awarding 3 winter placemaking micro grants at $3,000 each. The deadline will be November 13th. For applications. We will be turning those applications around very quickly and hope to get a response back to everybody within the following week. So I know that both of the application and the RFP have been posted in the chat box, so you can download them there. We will also be sending out an email on Monday with all of the links to the resources that have been shared in the discussion. Also, PDFs of everybody's presentations and the recording as well of both yesterday and today's workshop. So all of those resources and links will be shared with you. I will be holding office hours next Monday and Tuesday, November 2nd and 3rd. If you want to come and chat with me from 12 to 1, please email me and I will send you a calendar invite. And happy to talk about any projects that you have in mind or any questions that you have. I'm there for you. So please join me next week if you are interested in applying for one of our winter placemaking grants. So, all right, now on to our small group discussions. We've got a great list of small group discussions. We've got arts and working with artists, taking a deeper dive with Michelle Bailey. She will be your facilitator. Second one is alleyway activation exercise. Rebecca Stone will be leading that up. It's a really fun, interactive. I was able to play around with it, and I'm not very techy, so you'll have a lot of fun with her. The next one we have is on crowd granting, Richard Moray with the Department of Housing and Community Development. And more broadly, just around fundraising, Richard's a great resource on placemaking. Next up, we have streetscape and transportation, which was also quite full. So we've got 2 facilitators for that. We've got Don Kaplan and Catherine Otto. Both work really closely on Ped and Bike. John is the manager for Ped and Bike, and Catherine has been closely involved within VTrans on the updated Ped Bike plan. So they're great resources to talk to on that as well. Next and last, we've got working with diverse populations. This is, I think, a timely and important topic, and Suzanne Kelly from the Department of Health will be leading up that discussion. So the small group discussions, for those folks that weren't here yesterday, they really are a great opportunity to problem solve. Your facilitators are great resources and experts on the issue area. And can provide a lot of value. So we are going to transition into those breakouts. It'll give us about 5 minutes as we send you into your breakout room. You don't need to do anything on your end beyond the fact of just accepting the invitation. It'll pop up on your screen. It'll say, would you like to go into breakout session, whatever, and then you click accept, and then you'll be able to go in there. So take the chance to stretch, take a water break, run to the bathroom real quick, and we will probably be about 10 minutes over. So I hope folks are okay with that going till about 12:10. So enjoy your small group discussion and look forward to hearing from all of you about the great placemaking work you're going to do. Thank you, everybody.